Was I, the YouTuber, wrong? No, it's the viewers who are wrong. Actually, we're going to explore this idea today, for realsies. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and this is going to be a follow-up video to a league that we did a couple of weeks back. A few weeks back, I was asked to brew around Tannuk Steadfast Second, and the league did not go particularly well. And in the comments, someone essentially thought that I kind of phoned it in and I just threw a couple copies of these into mono red Stompy, and they were like, what gives? Shouldn't you be doing the big broken things? And I had gone on a long speech about like how, based on my experiences of playing this in Commander, that I didn't think that going for the big creatures was the correct way to do this in Legacy. But one of my viewers was determined and thought that this would work better in a sneak attack shell. So today we are going to explore this. And this is going to be a little bit of a longer video in that I'm going to do some goldfishing and potential tuning before this happens. Now, mono red sneak attack is a thing that exists at the very, very far fringes of Legacy playability. There was a time, probably north of a decade ago, where mono red sneak attack was a viable deck on the SCG circuit, but that was a window of a couple of weeks where things lined up very, very favorably for it. And occasionally people get the itch to try it again. So this starting point for the deck comes from DK Forever 24, who made the donation to support this video. Thank you very much for that, by the way. As I am transitioning to full-time content creation, the support of people like you who keep the videos coming is very much appreciated. If you want to do a donation deck list yourself, all of that information is always in every single video description. This is a build that is doing some weird stuff. It is hyper-aggressively going for blue decks in Game 1 with not just a playset of Pyroblast, but 2 red Elemental Blasts on top of that. And the creature suite to be sneak attacked in is incredibly atypical. So we have Terror of Mount Velis, which can give creatures you control double strike until end of turn. We have Phyrexian Flesh Gorger as a menace and lifelink card. And then we have, let's move that to a different row for a second, Skitterbeam Battalion, which is a 4/4 trample haste. When it enters, if you cast it, create 2 tokens that are copies of it. So assuming that you are warping this in or sneak attacking this in, this is 12 power by itself. And I want to do some goldfishing with this prior to starting the league. The donor shot me an email and said, hey, I know I'm doing some kind of crazy choices here, but like, hear me out. With something like Skitterbeam Battalion, you can leave something left over, and this is technically hard castable at 5 mana. Phyrexian Flesh Gorger can get you some life back, and that's useful with stuff like the One Ring and your Ancient Tombs. And I am of the opinion that if we're going to try to do this sneak attack thing, we shouldn't be taking the half measures. We should be going all the way with your Emrakuls, your Atraxas, your Blightsteels, your giant green creature that leaves behind a couple of 5/5 worms afterwards that I'm blanking on the name of at this exact moment. I think we should be going that direction with the creatures. But the donor has essentially said, like, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I think this sneak attack deck is going to be better. So first, we're going to determine through some goldfishing how viable this build looks, and then I will make any edits I feel like we need to give sneak attack Tannuk a viable league with a proper build if it doesn't look like this is going to work out. Like, there's some cool ideas here. Like, you play a broadside out prior to doing your Tannuk thing. You crash in with your 9-drop, and you throw your 9-drop at your opponent's face for 11. There's some cool stuff here, but I have a feeling that the broadside is largely only going to be good if you're doing something else successful anyway, like having a resolved One Ring or sneak attacking your creatures in anyway. So my guess is that after goldfishing, I am going to eliminate these 20 cards. I want to give it a good, honest evaluation and not kind of let my personal biases get in here. So we'll see how it plays out in some goldfishing. We'll do a couple of games, see what we think, and then we'll try to make some adjustments. And folks, should you need any cards because you don't have Phyrexian Flesh Gorger for your Legacy collection, please consider getting them from my sponsor, TOAMagic.com. And when you do, use promo code ThrabenU to save yourself a little bit on your order. TOA has some really, really awesome high-end stuff that was really, really fun to look at MagicCon Vegas. So check them out in person as well if you see this purple banner. All right, let's battle. Okay, so here is our first opening hand. I will keep this. So, Chromox Imprint, Ancient Tomb Spirit Guide, Tannuk, turn 2 do this thing. I'm not really convinced that that's better than just playing the One Ring, but let's test the thing that we are trying to test here. There is the Terror, there is the Ancient Tomb, there is the Tannuk. So now we are going to gain the option to warp in these various permanents. So, I would now warp. Oh, no. No, not with prototype. Cast this for realsies. So this is turn 2. I have 3 of these. I would be hitting my opponent for 12, which, because I have my own Ancient Tomb here, I think I am not going to mark down. So I hit for 12, 13, 14, 15, and then I would have 3 of these in play. That would be a turn 3 goldfish. That is relatively impressive. Everything worked out perfectly there. Let's try another one. This is a slightly less explosive hand without any soul lands here. Let's keep it and maybe see what happens with the broadside stuff. Actually, I suppose this being... Well, this is an artifact. I can't imprint that under Chromox anyway. So I could do, just for the sake of argument here, I could do something YOLO, like bam, 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 Tannuk, and then do this thing on turn 2 again, where I warp this in, and I attack for 15. All right, I mean, that's pretty impressive looking. That would goldfish on turn 3. All right, cool. I was skeptical, but this is rather good when it lines up properly. Well, this is surprisingly consistent at attempting to do this thing here. This would be a turn 2, though. I could play both of these out on turn 1. Turn 2, I could do this. I'm just vulnerable to everything here, though. Like, a removal spell, a wasteland, a daze, a force of will really makes this hand a lot worse, because every single one of those cards would just be dead. Like, that would be 4 dead cards that I couldn't do anything with if this card is answered. But, you know, assuming it doesn't get answered, we absolutely do a thing. Like, there's 15 damage. But as soon as Tannuk gets answered, so much of this is dead. And the impressive goldfishes in the first couple of hands are probably falling into that same boat. Some of those probably had enough mana to play something like the One Ring afterwards. So here is 3 mana that does not get to either one of these and also doesn't have great payoff things for this. I would mulligan this one. The second hand is also short on mana, and Phyrexian Flesh Gorger Sneak Attack doesn't exactly bring joy. This also would not have red mana to activate Sneak Attack afterwards. I think I would go to 5 here. The 5-card hand is not great. I would probably go ahead and keep it. So I probably need 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1 of these. Let's keep the Spirit Guide. I would turn 1, Sandstone Needle. Probably turn 2, Sneak Attack. And because this isn't something like an Emrakul or an Atraxa that can just carry the game on its own, I think I need to pass the turn and be able to broadside it at the same time. So now I can Sneak Attack in the Flesh Gorger, Sneak Attack in the broadside. This would be 7, 8, 9, row for another 7. That is not lethal. Could potentially sneak attack Tannuk in as well. Very much not sold on this card. Like, this could help me gain a little life to buy time. I don't like what Broadside and this card are bringing to the table here. Let's see how the one ring dimension of this plays out. So I could do something like Needle, Petal, pass for turn 1. Turn 2, I could play the one ring. And let's say that just hypothetically my opponent tried to counter, and we blow Lotus Petal and Pyroblast here to make sure this one ring resolves. Let's see how wild we get afterwards. So I get a bunch of cards. I now can't Tannuk and cheat something in at the same time. So let's say that I play around a Daze here, and I put a Tannuk into play. I'm at the point now where I could have 6 mana, and at 6 mana, I warp in like this. I could warp in the Flesh Gorger, and then warp in the Terror. Give everything double strike, and this would be lethal. I've dealt an extraordinary amount of damage to myself, though. I gained some of that back here. I think I would be unhappy just dealing 10 damage with this card alone. Maybe with Tannuk it being 16 is fine. I don't know. At this stage of the game, does my opponent have chump blockers? Question mark. Let's do 1 or 2 more of these. I think I want about 10 minutes worth of Goldfishing this here. Okay, this next opening hand just simply would not be keepable. This one is not great. It needs more mana. I could keep a 6 that looks something like this and maybe be unhappy with it some portion of the time. Or I could mulligan deeper. Let's say, hypothetically, that my opponent plays out a Tamiyo and I have to Pyroblast that. Just target my land for the sake of doing that. So I used a Pyroblast on my first turn. And now I'm at the point where I don't have the ability to deploy any of these 4-drops. And I would not deploy Broadside using both of my temporary things. So now it's turn 4. And I think I would be kind of unhappy with my position here. That one did not work out well. Let's do one last one. Yeah, this looks pretty terrible. Like, the Broadside is not good unless I am already doing the other things that this deck is doing. And these 2 cards are dead without Tannuk or Sneak Attack. Easy mulligan. Second hand is pretty bad as well. I would mulligan this. And at the point where we're at the third hand, I would keep this. And we just fully have to hope that the one ring resolves and does its thing. Chrome Mox, imprint one of those. Throw down the one ring. And hope for the best. Take some damage. Red Elemental Blast is not what I'm looking for right now. I'm looking for a way to win the game. And this is not contributing towards me winning the game. And if I am funneling 3 mana at a time into warping, also going to be kind of hard to hold this up. Could these be some sort of defense grid style cards? Is Overmaster an instant or sorcery? What does Overmaster not let get countered? Overmaster is instant or sorcery, so that wouldn't work for us. So I would take 2 to play out a Broadside, which I could use to throw the one ring in a pinch. I deal 2 points of damage here, and these cards have done a hot load of nothing here. My Pyroblasts are high variance cards, which may or may not have been good here. I suspect that I would probably lose this one in practice. All right, I'm going to take my observations over the last couple of minutes and try to tune up this deck a little bit. All right, so I've been working for a little while, and I just want to talk through some things that I'm currently thinking about because I think this process is neat. So one of the things that did not come up in Goldfishing, but came up as I started to refine this deck, is that Skitterbeam Battalion is bad with Sneak Attack. This says, when this creature enters, if you cast it, create 2 tokens that are copies of it. And Warp is casting the card. Sneak Attack is not casting the card. So if I keep this as a finisher, it only actually works with Tannuk, which is incredibly awkward. And the 11 cards that I have in this pile right here are the things that you might see from something like a mono red sneak attack deck that is playing both Through the Breach and Sneak Attack. Well, here's the thing. Tannuk is artifact cards and red creature cards in your hand have warp. So Emrakul, which is colorless, doesn't work with Tannuk. Atraxa, despite all those colors, red is not one of them, doesn't work. So the things that are traditionally good with Sneak Attack and Through the Breach are not actually red creatures. So if we want to build around Tannuk specifically, and Sneak Attack is kind of the plan B, I actually have to axe all of those creatures. And in doing so, I would be keeping maybe Skitterbeam Battalion, which doesn't actually work super well with Sneak Attack. And similarly, let's scoot that over even further, a lot of the things that I like casting in Tannuk in Commander do things on cast, which Sneak Attack doesn't do. So the Myojin of Roaring Blades, which is often kind of a baby board wipe, or, I was hoping could be 7 damage at your best creature, 7 damage at your face, attack you for 7, doesn't really work here either. So kind of the biggest and baddest thing that we could put into play is something like Blightsteel Colossus, which is something the donor was very hesitant about because this can, in many cases, do nothing if your opponent is prepared to block. But it's about the best big artifact that I could put in with Tannuk that is also still reasonable with Sneak Attack. So this is kind of leaving me in a very, very awkward place in terms of deck building, where the things that are good with Sneak Attack are often not actually also good with Tannuk. So there's actually a ton of tension in deck building between these two things. Even though they look like they do the same thing, they really don't. I've been bashing my head against this for a little while, trying to figure it out, and here's what I'm currently coming up with. I'm going to try to keep the donor's broadsides in here. I am finding that a lot of the Sneak Attack / Tannuk targets are not going to deal lethal by themselves in a ton of situations, but throwing with broadside might kind of change things. I'm going to try keeping that around and supplementing it with a playset of Hexing Squelcher. This means that sometimes we're going to settle in for some slightly longer games, but I'm going to give my opponent more things to point removal at in the early game so that Tannuk has a better chance of untapping and doing its thing. Sometimes we're just going to shove Tannuk on turn 1 anyway when we have the possibility of doing so, but this gives me another angle. Combustible Gearhulk was the closest thing I could find to an Atraxa that I thought would be consistent. This is either going to be a lot of damage on attack and from its trigger, or a decent amount of damage and a draw 3, which I think I am okay with. There's some other stuff that could fill this role, such as Clive, but Clive as a 5/5 with no evasion is not particularly impressive. In a longer Commander-style game, this card is sweet, and I have liked it a lot, especially if you realistically can transform it. In the fast-paced games that Legacy usually has, I don't think I like that. I'll try to keep a couple of Terror of Mount Wellus from the original deck list, but I'm going to split those with Scourge of the Throne, which can give us extra combat steps. And by splitting these two, maybe sometimes I will Sneak Attack in both of these dragons and get extra combat steps with Double Strike, and that sounds kind of cool. And extra combats are perhaps more interesting with Broadside, because I can go like attack for 5 in the air twice, maybe 6 in the air twice, and throw 2 different things with Broadside. That sounds kind of neat to me. And I think I like the direction this is going. These are going to be a little undercooked with Sneak Attack, but I think we are a Tannuk deck, not a Sneak Attack deck. I think that's just kind of the way we're going if we're not playing the Emrakuls and the Atraxas that maximize Sneak Attack, and if we're not going to be doing something like Through the Breach to supplement it. So to do my due diligence here, I do want to goldfish this a few times and make sure that this feels okay. If I'm going to slow down the games a little bit by doing Hexing Squelcher as well, I may need to go down some number of Sandstone Needle and just play a few more mountains, or go down a couple of these, even though they are very good with Chrome Mox, to play a few more mountains. First opening hand. Not great. Not enough mana. Clearly a mulligan. Second opening hand, plays a One Ring on the turn 2, and then hopefully figure stuff out from there. I guess I would keep this. I'm just not overly excited about it in its current state. I would go Needle and pass. And here is where, like, if I know I'm playing against a blue deck, I might slow down to play Hexing Squelcher, but that would take a counter off of Sandstone Needle, so, like, there is some awkwardness there. For the sake of goldfishing, let's just say that my opponent is non-blue, and I'm fine just jamming the ring. Let's then see how this feels after I draw these cards. Not looking good. So I could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This might be the point where I just hardcast a dragon and try to get in there. I would be losing my Sandstone Needle in process, which is not optimal, but I guess that is allowing me to play that card this turn as opposed to not. I guess that would be fine. So I would lose 3 on this. Chrome Mox, probably imprint the next land, and then spend the Spirit Guide here. Oh god, this one doesn't have haste by itself. Oh shit, that's so bad. I'm so used to that card having haste from playing it with Tannuk. Alright, so I would draw some more cards here. And at this point, I would have 4 mana for Sneak Attack, but not the ability to do it. I could, in theory, be attacking for 10-ish, plus or minus a little bit, depending on where Dethrone is at. I think there is a good chance that I would lose this game. The Terror also doesn't have haste, right? The Terror also doesn't have haste. We're out here doing our best. Second opening hand is fine, I guess. Like, I can just play a turn 3 Combustible Gearhulk uncounterably. That's really weird. And again, these needles are very good at getting the red pips for Tannuk, but everything else that's going on with them is awkward. What a hand. What a hand. Just to see what this is like, let's see what the damage output of this Gearhulk is when we say no here. So I'm at 18 currently. That was worth 7 damage immediately. And then this hand at this point kind of bottoms out and does not have any more real castables unless we count prototyping this, which I guess is just worth 6 damage, so it's fine. Maybe that's better than I give it credit for. The Sandstone Needles are definitely weird. I am not sure how I feel about those. I might need to take all of the Terrors out of the deck because they cost 7, and lining up Sandstone Needle, Ancient Tomb is not, like, crazy, whereas getting to that 7th mana is a big deal. Yeah, let's keep this. Say I throw back a Lotus Petal. So I could go land, pass, play Hexing Squelcher, it's uncounterable, and then turn 3. This is so much self-damage. I guess I would play the One Ring here. I'm not quite to anything cool with Sneak Attack yet, so I'd activate that. And then here's that, like, Sneak Attack, Skitterbeam Battalion awkwardness. Let's see. All right, so I would get up to a decent amount of mana. I may or may not be able to shock that in, depending on how much damage my opponent has done to me. But at this stage, I could Sneak Attack, Chrome Mox, Imprint, Tannuk, Sneak Attack in the Scourge, and then what happens from here depends on whether or not my opponent has blockers, but just for the sake of giggles here, let's say that I put this in. So this would be 5, 9, 10, 11, doubled to 22? Again, a lot of that depends on whether or not my opponent actually has blockers. Let's do one more here. So this has a decent amount of mana. I would keep this one. Yeah, using one of these for Squelcher and then trying to curve like the stuff after it, like Tannuk then requires a Sandstone Needle tap, and the warp afterwards theoretically requires it. I am less keen on these in this current iteration. And this is a turn where, like, if this was a creature that was good with Sneak Attack, I could go Ancient Tomb, activate, send in this creature, but this is not a creature that is good with Sneak Attack, so it's awkward. So instead, I could do something like this, imprint a Sneak Attack, play Hexing Squelcher, play Tannuk uncounterably, and, you know, swing in for 2. The next turn, I get to warp this in. I would be sending in for 12, 15, 16, 17. If Hexing Squelcher dealt 2 previously, maybe my opponent fetched, maybe this kills. But all it takes is one Nethergoyf style thing or one spot removal spell to make this not work. It feels like I'm on the right track to making a Tannuk deck in Legacy. This is just perhaps something we shouldn't be doing. I think I like this card. I think this is just castable, more castable than the Terror is. I'm going to go up to a full play set of these. And now the next question is, am I a crazy person for trying to make Hexing Squelcher work? Like, is that a good idea? Is that a bad idea? Like, I could just play Trinispheres in the main deck, and that could be my way to have some game versus opposing combo decks. It feels like Trinisphere on Sandstone Needle runs into the same problems that a Hexing Squelcher currently is. I don't know that that solves a problem. The Hexing Squelchers are what let me play Tannuk and Sneak Attack very easily on 2. I think I am going to cut one of these, turn it into a mountain, and one of these, and turn it into a mountain, and we'll kind of hedge somewhere in the middle. And then I think I'm going to take 5 more minutes here and clean up this sideboard a little bit. All right. I don't think I'm going to try to beat every deck with this deck. I think I'm just going to play a large number of a couple things that hedge in certain directions and call that good. So, for example, I'm going to leave myself soft to opposing artifacts, and I'm going to leave myself soft to Oops All Spells. We're probably not beating that deck anyway, so I don't think I'm going to spend 4 slots on Leyline of the Void. We're going to try to get some freebies with Magus of the Moon. We're going to try to have some game versus combo decks. Let's kind of keep the original donor's idea of having Pyroblast as an angle in the deck, and Fury can help us clean up small creatures while being something that's not embarrassing to put in via Sneak Attack or Tannuk. I'm not sure how this is going to fare in actual combat with other decks. Let's see if this is somewhat reasonable. Let's battle. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com. If you're looking to store your decks online, you're not going to find a better website. It's super organized and easy to use, and I sort everything that I do into a ton of format-specific folders, and you can customize the way that you use Moxfield to your liking. Whether you like text views or visual views of multiple different natures, Moxfield has it all. And it's so easy to use, you might even say that it's a snap. All right. Initial opening hand, all mana. That is not going to do it. Second opening hand, broadside, tons of mana. Nothing great to do with broadside. I could keep this hand and hope to draw something, or mulligan to 5. I think I will mulligan to 5 because hitting something like the One Ring is such a big deal. Oh, baby. Absolute hot garbage. We will go to 4. Thank you, deck. That is quite kind. I will go to 3. We're looking to keep a 1 ring and 2 soul lands. We did not get there. I will be keeping mana with this and probably conceding after I get an idea of what deck my opponent is playing. Unless I draw very specifically the 1 ring, I am just out of this one. And I would probably concede the game to a Thoughtseize on turn 1. It's just not worth playing out. Ah, yes. I talked about how I took Leylines out because I wasn't going to hedge against Oops, and then we get paired against Reanimator in round 1. Classic creator punish. I probably just lose, right? Let's go to the next game. I think I'm going to hide the information here. And my opponent's deck is going to be way faster and more consistent than mine is. My Hexing Squelchers don't matter here. I can turn those into Trinispheres, which maybe matter. I can also try to YOLO a win with Magus of the Moon before my opponent makes a land drop. I think I am okay with that plan. A major problem here is I have all these big stupid things in my deck that my opponent could Thoughtseize and reanimate. So in the hypothetical world where I also had a Leyline, there's still just going to be other problems. And now if I try to board in all of these things, I need to take something out of the deck. I guess that's Broadside. I don't have all that much top end to cheat in. So if I, say, take 4 of these out, it becomes way harder for me to line up my relevant cards. Remember when we were goldfishing and our hands looked okay? I remember. We'll mulligan here. This is pretty bad because this is the sneak attack that doesn't work with Skitterbeam Battalion. We are going to 5. The 5-card hand is reasonable. Skitterbeam Battalion does not go under Chrome Mox. Neither does Gearhulk, which is also an artifact. Which makes this awkward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In 3-ball we trust. This is just where we're at. Chrome Mox has been lagging today. That one specific card, which is very strange. Alright, there's 3-ball. I have 2 lands, though. My opponent can almost certainly finish this game before I draw into the goodness that I need. Something that I have said a lot when doing more competitive content for Moon Stompy style decks is that the hand that has a lock piece and can't follow it up is usually not a keep. There are exceptions to that where like the lock piece can be so incredibly damning that it can singularly win the matchup, but usually you need to apply pressure afterwards. And we're just fully hoping that my opponent does not have additional lands. They do get to discard a Griselbrand to graveyard, though. So this is pretty disastrous. An unmask to graveyard. I can now shut off my opponent's blue mana, but the black mana is the one that matters here. Presumably, if my opponent puts Griselbrand into play, I lose. And now I'm in this awkward position where these 4-drops in my hand don't do anything immediately. The 3-mana Lotus Petal. What a deal. When it has Show and Tell as well. And again, because I'm focusing on Tannuk and not Sneak Attack, this means that I don't have the like amazing creatures like Emrakul and Atraxa and Archon to put in off of their Show and Tell, which is a pretty big deal. So like the way I win this one is my opponent just never hitting land drop 3. That's land drop 3. Presumably, one of these getting into play is curtains for me. We can warp Chrome Mox. Yeah, there we go. So now my opponent gets an Animate Dead for Griselbrand for the next turn. This is probably the point where I take one more draw step and concede. I don't believe that I will beat Atraxa, let alone Atraxa and Griselbrand. And opponent can also send some other creatures to graveyard potentially. More Griselbrand. I can warp in Simian Spirit Guide. At this point, I think we have been thoroughly bested. Our deck simply did not operate that well in this round, and we saw that awkwardness of things like Skitterbeam Battalion alongside Sneak and Show. I will say the average hand that we got in this league game was very low compared to what we were goldfishing, although keep in mind that when we are goldfishing, we are always treated as if we are on the draw and get the extra card in the first round. GG. All right. How willing am I to just cast turn 2 Combustible Gearhulk? No, it's not turn 2, right? I could Sandstone Needle, and then this one enters tapped. Oh, that's weird. So I could turn 2 Broadside, turn 3 Combustible Gearhulk, threaten to throw it with Broadside. That's not fantastic. I'm not in love with this. I think I would keep this on a hand that has already mulliganed. This, I like enough to keep. I keep this and probably get rid of 1 copy of Chrome Mox. I will do Needle and pass. There's a lot riding on this land not eating a wasteland. Ancient Tomb. Grim Monolith. Yep. So opponent's big mana deck is going to just go much faster than my deck is. We could be facing down a Karn immediately. That shuts off both of these. Trinisphere, punish for not playing out Chrome Mox immediately. Love it. Whereas, like, if my opponent has something like Prismatic Ending, that punishes for playing it out. So it is not just, like, strictly correct to play it out. I think I'm going to start going for my opponent's life total here and send in for 2. They've got Ancient Tomb as their only land currently, and I don't mind having something in play that can help to pressure something like a Karn. The untap on the Grim Monolith is great, though. There is my opponent's One Ring. Rather good. I do not get the mana that I need to play my 4-drops, which is unfortunate. I think that just means I am passing the turn here. And my deck has kind of pooped itself. So my opponent is almost certainly going to take over this game. I don't need to do a lot of damage to kill them, but with my opponent having this many cards already, I think they are rather favored. Down to 11. Feels like a Kozilek's command if it's taking this long to cast. Oh no, more mana. Down to 9. It's an Ugin. Fully just dead to that card. The passive, when you cast a spell, exile a permanent thing, is incredibly strong. So if I play out one of these cards, I'm in very bad shape to this Ugin. I will pretend that my own One Ring keeps me competitive with their One Ring that already has counters on it and Ugin, but it doesn't. My opponent is going to lose a little bit, but like they have life gain and exile-based stuff baked in now. To win, I will need to sneak attack and activate and deal 10 damage in one turn cycle. Maybe more if Ugin starts plussing. It's bad. Basically, would need Magus of the Moon to steal 2 games in a row here. That is a new One Ring. Now, luckily, our own One Ring is colorless, so it can't be exiled via Ugin, although the text is terribly, terribly small here and not really readable even on my large screen. Bad MTGO experience there, just in terms of the raw number of words on this card. There's a Candelabra as well. So my opponent now gets to untap all of those Urza's workshops, and the Ancient Tomb doesn't hurt them this turn as they now have protection from the One Ring. I had the read previously that they had Kozilek's command. Nope, it's Karn. Karn shuts off my One Ring. We can fully get out of this game now. That was a disaster. GG. And we are going to lean on Magus of the Moon pretty heavily here to help us out. My One Rings are worse than their One Rings since they have Karns. I am considering just keeping Hexing Squelcher in the deck as something that attacks for a couple of points of damage. I think I'm going to do that. I think the way that I win is make them stumble and then just get in there with this stuff after I play Magus of the Moon. That is not how I want to be playing out this game. I could also play Furies for Planeswalkers specifically, and it wouldn't be embarrassing. That is a turn 1 Magus of the Moon. That leaves me with no good follow-up play. This is fully what I want to do to attempt to win the matchup. Hitting any mana source when my deck is just below 50% mana gives me 4 power in play. Very begrudging keep that I am unhappy with. So again, what I said previously is a lock piece without a follow-up isn't really a keep. Here, I think my chances of winning this matchup are so bad that I am going to keep this and hope to get lucky. The thing here is that my opponent can go second land drop Grim Monolith and just cast their big stuff anyway on turn 2. And this deck frequently plays Dismember, which could just fully... Alright, cool. Knock me off of my Magus of the Moon that I opened on. Speak of the devil and he shall appear. Yep. I mean, we had our best card in the matchup, and it was likely just not good enough. There is a Candle. Do not have the mana for Tannuk. And now I am going in with Hexing Squelcher, which is not doing what I need it to do. Urza's Saga will Stonewall Hexing Squelcher. Opponent is up to Trinisphere mana. I get Tannuk. If I untap without my opponent doing something impressive, I get an extra combat step. I could win this. However, my opponent could just straight up cast an Ugin next turn. Actually, if my opponent completes Tron, they could do better than just Ugin. They also potentially have lines where they untap Urza Saga and make multiple tokens. Notably here, my opponent does not currently have the lowest life total for Dethrone. That's actually very inconvenient. Normally, I'm going to expect that I am going to be brutalizing my own life total with my Ancient Tombs and whatnot. But even if I go to 14, my opponent is still the highest. Very awkward. It may be that my Magus of the Moon being in play, keeping me from taking damage from the Volcanic Fissure, loses me this one. This is a scenario where the Terror of Mount Velis would be better than the Scourge. All right. Sneak Attack. That's interesting. I could play that and do some neat stuff. So can my opponent make 2 constructs? So they tap these 2 for Urza Saga. They then have Metalcraft. They then make 3 mana, go down to 1 mana, untap these 2. Yes, they can make 2 things. So attacking on the ground is not great. I think I'm going to warp the Gearhulk and see what happens. I'm happy with the draw 3. It potentially just lets me warp a second thing in here if I hit another Ancient Tomb. I can also just play Sneak Attack and try to double activate next turn. It's also, I guess it's not too bad if my opponent has another Dismember. They already would have used that, I think. They could take the haste off of the Gearhulk if they can remove Tannuk, but that would cost them 6 life, 4 from the Dismember and 2 from the Hexing Squelcher ward trigger. Alright, looks like my opponent is just going to make their stuff as of right now. And we see the exact line that I was talking about. Oh, it is a Kozilek's command instead. Okay, yeah, exactly what I thought could happen with Dismember happened here instead. That's pretty bad for me. We'll see what my opponent does with the actual Combustible Gearhulk itself, though. Alright, they are going a bunch of spawns. Hate that. So, trigger. Do I get to draw 3? If I were in the opponent's position, I would let me draw 3. They indeed let me draw 3. I hit no actual land, so I can't Sneak Attack plus activate as of right now. What a disaster. And the Hexing Squelcher can't reasonably attack in either. Well, that was terrible. Now my opponent can sack some spawns to make their second artifact creature. From here, the way that I win involves hitting an untapped land to play Sneak Attack, activate, and attack twice with this in the air. I also need my opponent to deal me 4 points of damage this turn, as they continue to grow their army. Manifold Key comes down. Get an untap on some lands. And these are big mana now as Planar Nexus completes Tron. I think the One Ring means that this game is no longer winnable. I'm taking half of my life total from constructs this turn already. My opponent also has just tons of mana and tons of card draw now. Rim of Monolith. That's just mana neutral. That costs 3 and makes 3, but is fun with Manifold Key. Although, I think that untapping Candle with Key is more mana than untapping Grim Monolith. If that is a Dismember, I am dead. Just full on dead to the construct tokens. That'll do. We got absolutely bodied there. GG's. We'll try again next round. Alright, opening hand does not look playable. Kind of regretting leaving Broadside in the deck. It is not lining up well. I will mulligan. Second hand actually looks legitimately good. I get probably turn 2 Sneak Attack activate. I'm going to keep this pitch Broadside. Any red card lets me Sneak Attack and activate on turn 2. Okay, I guess that's not true because some of these are artifact creatures. Most things let me do that. So horrified of Wasteland every time I play this land out. Basic Swamp. Get Thought Seized. Get Thought Seized. Hand now does nothing. It is very hard to lean on synergistic strategies in Legacy right now when Thoughtseize is so good. Thank you, deck. At destroying those synergies. And this is also something that doesn't go under Chrome Mox. I'm going to play out this Lotus Petal so that I don't lose it. Discard. So when my opponent Thoughtseized me, they actually effectively took 3 cards, right? Because I lost Sneak Attack, Gearhulk all at the same time. Yeah, fuck me. Let's go. So I'm going to just preemptively put that under a Chrome Mox. I'm now hoping that my opponent can't do a follow-up threat. Hey, a follow-up threat. And these will both scale off Bloodstained Mire. If my opponent doesn't have anything else to do, they can just get a Surveil land here, potentially. Nope, it is a basic swamp. And a Nethergoyf. So I get attacked for 3 this turn, and then a lot next turn. Very nice. I don't imagine coming back from this now. So this is a minimum of 9 damage this turn. I am dead the following turn, and there's nothing that gets me out of that. Yeah, there's nothing that gets me out of that from this position. Yep, Thoughtseize and Wasteland. Brutal. Although, honestly, just the Thoughtseize would have done it. None of these are castable off of 5 mana. GG. I will turn a couple of red things into Furies. Maybe Hexing Squelchers here. This hand does not do anything. Stone Cold nothing. Mulligan. This second hand doesn't have anything that pairs with any of these. This will be a mulligan as well, unfortunately. The third hand does not have enough mana. I think I am going to keep it at this point. I have mulliganed twice already. I think I'm going to keep it and hope that I can resolve something that matters. This needs to go away. And I guess I'll keep Tannuk. It's just not great. Everything about this situation is bad. I don't have mana to get to the One Ring. I'm vulnerable to Thoughtseize. I'm vulnerable to Wasteland. I don't have any sort of removal like Fury to kick things off. Yeah, Wasteland, there we go. And I am down mana now. So my opponent can then cycle their baubles. I need Ancient Tomb. They're going to cycle 1 bauble. So they can see this card and then cycle the other bauble to see what's next as well. Thank you, Tannuk. Very cool. Yeah, this deck is really struggling in real play. The Goldfishing did some impressive things, and the Wastelands and Dazes and Dismembers, the first singular piece of interaction just brings this deck to a grinding halt. Since it is trying to rely on these expensive spells that require you to have Tannuk or Sneak Attack first, when things go wrong, it's just not very good at playing Magic. That's a godsend. Literal perfect draw. An opponent doesn't have a Daze land there for if they are the splash build. Alright, we got a snowball's chance. We get a fog for this turn, so this Nethergoyf isn't growing. I can play Tannuk as a 3/5 blocker if nothing else favorable happens for me. Ooh, that sucks. Now I can't play Tannuk. My land does not make 2 mana anymore. Alright, now I can play Tannuk. Yeah? Sneak Attack, though? Yeah, I think I just put Sneak Attack in play. So that is 1 mana. There is a Sneak Attack in play. So my opponent will certainly have the most life. So hopefully I'm just going to get 2 combat steps. Damn it! No! I mean, I'm going to draw a few more cards on my turn, so that's not the end of the world or anything. I don't care. Well, I mean, I care a little bit about losing Ancient Tomb. Their spells are now more expensive. Okay, so yeah, they're not even going to wasteland me. They'll just play another Nethergoyf. Okay. I am down to 12, then down to 10. Spirit Guide is not what I'm looking for. Oh, utterly disastrous. Okay. So I will play the One Ring. And again, this taps for 1 colorless mana, so this does require me to use my Spirit Guide. This gives me a Fog. I will keep this untapped one, get protection, draw a card. All right, there's a Gearhulk. That's something. I'm fighting the good fight, folks, but this is rather difficult. Stealthy Voidwalker is incredibly awkward with my sneak attack in play. I can get wastelanded here. This is theoretical lethal damage. I'm going to take 1 from this ring, go to 7. That's not what I'm looking for. Draw some cards. Am I trying to play defensive sneak attack? I think I sneak in one of these and see what happens. So Gearhulk comes in. If I were the opponent, I would probably take damage, which could make it so that putting in the next Gearhulk makes sense. My opponent goes to 9. It does mean that there's now a Combustible Gearhulk under Stealthy Voidwalker. I think I'm going in. Here is a new Combustible Gearhulk. My opponent now probably has to let me draw the 3 cards. Oh, I did not hit the red source that I was looking for. Oh wait, I haven't cast a spell yet. So that's fine. So I can cast Chrome Mox, imprint a sneak attack. One of these has to be blocked or my opponent dies. This is the sneak attack anti-synergy. If I sneak in Tannuk, my opponent cannot let both of these through, so they can block Tannuk. It doesn't kill their thing. I'm not dead on board. I can sneak in a Tannuk to block. Oh fuck, but my own 1 ring though. No, I'm okay. I'm working relatively hard for this, despite having a sneak attack and 2 Combustible Gearhulks. So my opponent takes 6, goes to 3, and I will pass the turn, losing both Gearhulks, but keeping the ability to put in a Tannuk to block Nethergoyf, and then I will take 3 from Douthie, 2 from the One Ring. I won't be able to tap Ancient Tomb anymore, but I will be alive, at which point... Or no, I can still tap Ancient Tomb because of Damping Sphere. Weird. At which point, I can sneak in a Tannuk and then warp in Skitterbeam Battalion, going for lethal. Okay, opponent is sending in both. I will sneak attack, put in a Tannuk, block, take 3, go to 4, which is effectively 2. Yeah, you can wasteland that land. That's fine. Dark Ritual. Don't Sheldred me. Barrowgoyf. I could really go for a flyer right now then. So take some damage, go to 2. A flyer. Nice. Okay. We're fine. Activate this. See, now we are cooking with gas. There's this. Activate this. There's broadside as well. There's sneak attack. Activate. Ugh. All right. We have our first game win on the board. Very weird. The Damping Sphere made it so that I couldn't play some stuff out, but then kept me from being dead to my own Ancient Tombs. So that was the thing that happened. Okay, so this is a hand that can play a sneak attack on turn 2. Thoughtseize tears this hand apart. I think I keep it, but if I get Thoughtseized, we're like pivoting into hopefully hardcasting Combustible Gearhulk. Damn it. Welcome to the fundamental difference between Goldfishing and not. Your opponent gets to say no to your bullshit. Oh, that's so bad. Bauble resolves. So I can theoretically hardcast this stuff with 2 Sandstone Needles here, but like now we get to the point where like a Wasteland follow-up is so incredibly strong. Needle and pass. I'm not going to preemptively play out Chrome Mox. I am not willing, to give Fury up as a guaranteed card yet. Nethergoyf as well. Will be a 3/4 immediately. So do I kill it? I think so. It just doesn't feel good. But if I don't take this opportunity right now, I probably never get the chance to remove this creature again. And hopefully this buys me some time. By using a pitch card there, the power of Chrome Mox is greatly, greatly dampened. We've got Polluted Delta into a Douthie Voidwalker. You've got it. Could be worse. All right, I mean, I am willing to use one of my 2 counters for this. So I will send in for 2, bring my opponent to 15, play Chrome Mox, and I have nothing to imprint, but we're doing this to just throw that at Douthie and take that out of play. I'm now hoping to spike something like the One Ring, like use that with my last Sandstone Needle counter. Ooh, opponent is passing. Lotus Petal, sure. I will put that into play. There are timelines where I throw that. I am hoping this is not one of them. It is one of them, potentially. My opponent can ping this, and this is very good versus the One Ring, which is one of my best outs here, so I think I just go ahead and throw the Lotus Petal, and then my opponent can't block with this. Opponent to 13. If I draw an Ancient Tomb, I could cast this, and I'd be in pretty okay shape. Opponent has held back this token, which I hate. All right. This is the world I live in. This is where we're at. Absolutely fucking devastating. Whatever, I have 2 menace creatures. I think my opponent missed a point of damage. Did not think I was going to be pivoting into the beatdown roll, but here we are. I am in for 4 points of damage. My opponent is at 9. That Disruptor Flute lives there forever. I can't answer that. Wasteland doesn't currently do anything, but could be pretty good in a minute. I don't want to see my opponent drop a Barrogoyf now. That probably wins them the game. So I can't attack with these anymore, or Barrogoyf gets to block. I can let Barrogoyf hit me for 5 and then crack back for 4. But presumably my opponent will start finding things like Nethergoyfs to hold down the ground. I need to do something broken at this stage, or I will lose. It's possible I should just start chump blocking the Barrogoyf. Oh, my opponent has a Ral Zarek Guest Lecturer in there. That is interesting. There's another Barrogoyf coming as well. That's not going to do it. I think my plan is now chump block both of these, attempt to draw exactly Ancient Tomb for the One Ring. Oh, there's more. So much for the One Ring. Now we're in on Sneak Attack. I don't know that I can survive 2 turns. Like, my opponent is going to have 2 Barrogoyfs and a Nethergoyf. And Chains of Mephistopheles. Alright. So I will protect my life total. I can't think of anything that now gets me out of this. Like, these 2 cards alone are lethal. I can't deploy any of this stuff. We are dead with a bunch of uncastable cards in our hand. We got a game win, but we got obliterated here. GG. Alright, opening hand simply does not have enough mana to function. I could keep this, and if I get wastelanded or I don't draw a land, I have 5 dead cards. I guess 4 dead cards. Mulliganing isn't working today. Maybe I just keep this. We have not done anything on the order of play a turn 1 Tannuk currently in this league. We are playing against Eldrazi. Okay. Always this. Then there's questions of what do I play. The boring answer is play the One Ring. It's best versus Eldrazi Linebreaker that could be coming. But that's not what you all came here to see. So we will simply just not take the best play. And we will play Tannuk and try to do something with Tannuk. I will keep multiple pieces of top end here. My Ancient Tomb means that my opponent will be at the higher life total for the first dethrone attack. So in theory, I could be attacking for 16 next turn. Wastes comes down, and Glaring Fleshraker. No immediate follow-up play. I think I'm going to do this one. The Gearhulk is certainly more interesting in terms of what could happen. I get 2 different triggers here. One gives me an untap, one gives me a +1/+1 counter. Opponent's going to take that, and then I get another combat step. Opponent doesn't have the most this time. They are taking 9 and going to 2. And then I lose my dragon. And we'll see if we die to my opponent doing Glaring Fleshraker combo style stuff. It is very possible that my opponent could play a second Glaring Fleshraker and fully combo me off, or do something very strong with a Kozilek's command. Even if they don't, even if they just put a couple of bodies in play, I might not be able to get through with like Combustible Gearhulk and Tannuk. They don't have evasion of any kind. Down to 15. Note that I think this is the first time we successfully warped a creature this league. If I were to hit a soul land, I could just cast this from exile. That is a Wastscape Battle Mage. The opponent is going to bounce my Tannuk, which is pretty devastating. That is a very big blow to my tempo here. I'll take 2 in combat damage, and that's another Tannuk. If I play Tannuk, I will be at 9 life, and another one of these plays like this might spell disaster for me. I think I'm going to accordingly play the One Ring and try to draw some cards that just let me cast this creature. I just need a little bit of mana. And again, my deck is 50% mana, so hopefully that'll happen. I was looking for 2 mana in 3 cards from the One Ring plus my draw step. I can't die to combat damage this turn. However, I could die to a large Kozilek's command in my own upkeep, I suppose. Sire of 7 Deaths. That sure has the word reach written on it. That sucks for me. That's not something that I normally have to play around, and accordingly was not playing around. There's the first mana source I need to cast this, but it sure has First Strike in addition to all those other words on it. Okay. I can play Combustible Gearhulk. My opponent will just make me draw 3 cards. That's not great. So I have to stall. I think I go 1, 2, 3, 4 for the One Ring. Keep this one, get protection, draw a card. Okay. Broadside can get me a kill next turn. I can throw my ring. Again, could lose to Glaring Fleshraker triggers on my own turn, but my opponent isn't gaining life from the Sire. That is a new Glaring Fleshraker. The broadside that I poo-pooed earlier in this league is potentially bailing me out of this very, very bad spot. Alright. Down to 7. Sneak Attack as well. Okay, cool. Draw with One Ring. So I believe that I just play broadside so I don't take 2 points of damage. I think that 2 points of difference is potentially relevant. I can play Sneak Attack and activate once, or I can cast broadside. So I think I am just... yeah, I think I'm just casting broadside here. Kozilek's command for X equals 2 makes 2 spawns. That's 4 damage. Yeah. Oh wait, hold on. Is Kozilek's command for X equal 2 already lethal? So 4 damage, and then 2 of these trigger 6, 8. Yes, that is already lethal. In which case I have 5 mana. So I can go Hexing Squelcher into broadside. Yes. There's Hexing Squelcher. Now my broadside can't be killed. Broadside, uncounterable, hasty, throwy goodness. Yeah, broadside, target face, throw the One Ring. Alright, GG. Wastegate Battle Mage is good against both tap out Sneak Attack and tap out Tannuk. That's not amazing. I have these cards that I can think about. Hexing Squelcher is normally not particularly strong. It was kind of neat in the exact scenario that I had play out there at the end, although I guess I'm not exactly sure what removal spell I was playing around. I guess Spatial Contortion. Not expected in Game 1 usually, though. Dismember wouldn't have been live. I think I'm going to get rid of Skitterbeam Battalions and turn those into Furies. And then I can play some number of Magus of the Moon to attempt to shut off some of my opponent's cards. I will probably go for the playset. And I don't know, maybe that. I could also just keep Hexing Squelcher as something that goes under Chrome Mox since Combustible Gearhulks don't. Sure. This has 3 mana but 0 acceleration, and I don't think the turn 3 Magus of the Moon on the play is going to cut it here. I will mulligan this one. The second hand does not have enough mana to be functional. I could keep it under the hopes that I draw a land, do turn 3 Sneak Attack, turn 4 double activate Scourge, 6, 12, 18, 24, dead? I could try to live the dream of killing my opponent in a single turn with Sneak Attack off 2 dragons that give bonus combat steps, which is kind of cool. Alright, for the screenshot, let's attempt it. I think the reality of this situation is like a Wastegate Battle Mage or a Thought-Knot Seer takes this from my hand, or I die to Eldrazi Linebreaker before I get to untap with Sneak Attack, We have a Petrified Hamlet coming down immediately. Opponent might just name one of their own lands here rather than one of my lands. And you just like name something like Eye of Ugin to turn it into a mana producing land. Going for Urza's Saga and then passing the turn, that is fine. I will play an ETB tapped land here and pass the turn. Okay, there's Eye of Ugin. Opponent could have had more mana here. Alright, I mean, this is the mana that I needed. Do I go for the sneak attack, or do I just play the One Ring? If I play the One Ring, I can attempt to draw more mana and sneak attack and activate in the same turn, which I kind of like. I am going to go for that. It also probably saves me a decent amount of life. All right. We are partway to activating sneak attack next turn. This is tied as well, right? Yes. If we are both at 20, or I will probably go down to 19 from my own One Ring. A new Petrified Hamlet. Let's see if this one names Eye of Ugin. They have named Mountain. I'll take it. So I'm going to go down to 19 here. So close. All right. Rome Mox. I think I do this. Imprint Broadside. Rome Mox. Imprint Dragon. And I just assume that the One Ring finds me something else to do next turn. Sneak Attack. A. Put in Dragon. Do you have Dismember? They do have Dismember. Sure. One Ring draws me 3 cards, and I get to look at 4 cards on my own turn. Or rather, 1 card for my own turn for a total of 4 cards. Hopefully this is fine. I intentionally decided not to play out Broadside to play around a smaller removal spell. But it just so happens that Dismember kills that dragon. That is a Thought-Knot Seer. That is just a 4/4 blocker, and if I kill it, I get a card. But every single point of damage matters for my opponent here. Like they are racing a One Ring when I am doing something unfair. So I'm at 17 when those triggers resolve. I'll take 2 in combat, going to 15, and then go to 13 from the One Ring triggers here. Broadside is okay. I will do this. That's nothing too fancy. So I don't hate this. Send in with both. Broadside, target Thought-Knot, throw the One Ring, so I stop bleeding to that. I'll get to draw a card. Opponent goes to 12. I'll now activate Broadside, target a Glaring Fleshraker, throw a Chrome Mox. I am considering Sneak Attack at my end step to put in Magus of the Moon so that they don't have as much mana for their turn. So currently, if we count this as 2, they have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And if I put this in, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think that is worth it. Oop. Ooh, no, I can't play this as a land. Well, never mind then. I'm not thinking about that. And then hopefully just having 2 Broadsides with Menace and a Magus that I can throw ends up being good enough. Opponent is passing the turn with a gajillion D mana available. Do I try to cast a Magus now? I think I try to cast a Magus now. And this prompts any sort of colorless Kozilek's command mana to be floated immediately. And I know what's happening. Ooh, opponent is searching with Eye of Ugin. I think that just means they're dead. I attack for 4. I attack for 6. I throw Simian Spirit Guide. Yeah, I think my opponent tapping out there just lets me know that the coast is clear to kill them. Getting Sire of 7 Deaths, which does not have a true colorless required symbol in it. Magus resolves. I will activate Sneak Attack for 1, putting in a Simian Spirit Guide. I'm going to put a match win on the board. All it took was the One Ring drawing me a whole bunch of cards. And honestly, my opponent having a relatively weak hand. The Dismember punched a hole and stopped them from taking 12, but like they did a Thought-Knot Seer that did not take any cards from my hand and ultimately drew me a card, and a Glaring Fleshraker that did not deal me that much damage. So we're on the board, but this is feeling rough. GG. All right, opening hand here. could just play out a game where I cast 2 Hexing Squelchers and eventually Tannuk. I think I am willing to do that. It's weird and not really what this deck intends on doing, but if my opponent is playing fair with removal, 2 different copies of Hexing Squelcher could be a decent amount of burn that leads to one of these things taking over the game. The real question is, do I take 3 on turn 2 to play a Hexing Squelcher without the possibility of getting Sundering Eruption Wastelanded? I think I just play this out, and it sucks if I get Wastelanded. I also could go hyper aggro and use a Lotus Petal to play a Hexing Squelcher on 1 and second Hexing Squelcher on 2. I think the Lotus Petal is too valuable to do that. Now, if I leave this land in hand, it potentially gets Thought Seized, which is like another slightly annoying thing to think about. I think I'm going to go ahead and drop this. Apt. And when I get Wastelanded, it sucks. Tropical Island, maybe Show and Tell? Like Show and Tell Alurin? In which case the Tannuk threats are considerably worse than me having access to Archon of Cruelty and my own Emrakuls. But that is what it is. There's an uncounterable Lotus Petal. Wasteland is very, very, very good against me as of right now. Now less likely that this is a Show and Tell deck. Actual, factual, nimble fucking mongoose. Wild. Alright, I mean, I am working towards some very cool uncounterable things. I will need another mana source since we got Wastelanded. I will send in for some points of damage. Am probably technically still the aggressor right now, although I imagine my opponent is doing some sort of booting mandrels, some bonus cantrip that fills the graveyard, some sort of consider, thought scour type stuff. Getting to Threshold takes a little while. We also might see my opponent, like, daze one of my cards, and this is the downside of playing all of this top end. Daze one of my cards purely to put a card in graveyard. They don't have an instant in graveyard yet. All right. We're roughly 50% mana. I should hit in the next draw step or 2. And my creatures have 2 instances of ward. They're hard to remove. It's more likely that my opponent like gets a 3/3 and gets to just let that chill in play. Bulk comes down. Delver comes down. Delver comes down. I will die incredibly quickly to those Delvers if they flip. I will take 1 here. That's very awkward because I have to blow the Lotus Petal to do it. All right, in I go. All of these things have ward. In I go. Opponent concedes there. I'm not entirely convinced that that game is over, but I'm definitely favored. GG. So I probably want Fury, despite the fact that my opponent has Nimble Mongoose. And I can probably think about Pyroblasts as well. I think I'm turning Skitterbeam Battalions into Furies. And one of those becomes a Pyroblast, and then the question becomes, do I want more Pyroblast? Probably. Answering Delver and Murktide Regent and potentially Flow State matters enough that I should be thinking about these. I don't know that I can cut any more of these and keep these good. It could be that I do something that looks like that, and I just go away from some of the consistency of being able to do the thing. I don't think I want Trinispheres here, especially in boarding in Pyroblasts and already having things like Hexing Squelcher. I am willing to just keep this. The easiest way for me to lose this matchup is just get like Wastelanded and not play Magic at all. I think I'm just going to keep something that can potentially jam a 1-ring relatively quickly. Ooh, we Squelch? I'd almost rather Squelch on turn 2. Maybe I don't Sandstone Needle yet. Turn 1, nothing. Turn 2, Squelcher off mountains. Turn 3, bam, bam, bam. I don't hate that. That's not how I was expecting this to play out. But then this way, I'm not short-term wastelandable. Prop comes to play. The goose is loose. Delver. Oh, my Kingdom for a Fury that kills both of those at the same time. That would be such a good top deck. 19. Is another Hexing Squelcher. All right. So there's that. Just, I guess, resolve a Lotus Petal right now while I know it resolves. But we don't want Delver to blind flip. Delver blind flips to Force of Negation. which is good if Hexing Squelcher leaves play. And otherwise does nothing. This lets all spells I control not be countered. That DRC trigger was a big deal, because that is the difference between me taking 3 extra damage this turn and not. Because as of right now, the Delver is the only thing that can attack. Land drop comes down. A new Delver. Ooh. I will take some damage here. I might need to not play the One Ring this turn. So I can do Shatterskull Smashing for X equals 2 and kill 2 threats here uncounterably before this becomes a 3-3 and that becomes a 3-2. Kind of like that. I kind of like that. So that will cost me 4. This is 6 cards in graveyard now. I'm going to assume that my opponent puts 1 card into graveyard on their turn and just send in for 2 points of damage of my own. And, ooh, that's very good. That means I'm now taking 6 here. One Ring is not on the table in the short term. I could die. Like, that means that I don't get to broadside 100% of the time here. I am at 7. Squelcher. Lightning Bolt be damned. I'm going to keep pressure up. Opponent to 15. Ugh. Yeah. Was that rough? That killed both of my Hexing Squelchers without causing my opponent to take any damage. Fury does not kill the Nimble Mongoose that has Shroud. I am dead there. Opponent's got it. GG. You're now tied. So I now know about Rough as something that can clear Hexing Squelcher. I don't know that that means that I'm getting rid of Hexing Squelcher because my opponent has ported in things like Force of Negation that can counter Sneak Attack in the One Ring. So it might just be overall okay with my configuration. I don't know, maybe I wasn't supposed to do Shatterskull Smashing and kill 2 of my opponent's creatures. Maybe I was supposed to just do the One Ring, draw some cards, and hope to do something busted. I don't know, maybe I flip-flop these. Maybe Sneak Attack putting these in has a higher chance of winning than Tannuk. Tannuk double dipping on Fury is kind of cool, though. Like, that's the sort of thing that I built my original Tannuk brew around, was getting double triggers out of the One Ring, Fury, and Pyrogoyf. Alright, if I don't get Wastelanded, this is totally reasonable. And if I get Wastelanded, uh-oh. So I will Needle and pass the turn here. Yeah! We have not caught a break at all this league. New Soul Land off the top? No? Alright. That's just kind of how this league has gone. I don't have 0 mana here. I have 2 mana. Like, this could certainly be worse, and hopefully I get 2 creatures with Fury as a way to catch back up. That I will just play as an ETB tapped land. I'll pass here. If Delver Blind flips, Delver Brainstorm flips. And Force of Will is revealed, which is not great for me. That means that I have to end up using one of these 4-drops as bait, or alternatively, my Fury does not resolve killing both of these creatures. Kind of no matter how that goes down, I'm not happy. Here is a Chrome Mox. It has resolved. I think I put a Spirit Guide under it. And then I do Fury, junking this. Oh wow, opponent let it resolve. I will kill both of those creatures. And now I need to feed one of these things to Force of Will. I think I feed the One Ring. And I hope that I am getting Force of Will and not Daze. I don't think I get to keep the Spirit Guide. Jeebus, the One Ring just resolved? Wild. You have Force of Will in hand. Do you have no blue cards? Is there a blue cards shortage? All right. I am very confused. I will draw some cards. You have some, what? No? I mean, I have a bunch of hot garbage here. Yeah? I will cast this, and I don't care if it resolves. I will just cast this dragon. All right, Force of Will pitching Daze. So that Daze had to be the draw for turn, otherwise the One Ring gets dazed. Okay. Are you going to play a flash creature and just, nope. I'm so lost. I legitimately don't know what's going on over there. I am at 10. There is Tannuk. I will draw some cards. Yes. Now I have to, like, do math and stuff. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, not counting Chrome Mox. I think I'm taking 2 more here. Do Squelcher. Then at that point, can't put Gearhulk under this. Chrome Mox. Let's just assume that I find something else big and stupid. There's Tannuk. Uncounterable. Played around Daze if this gets removed, and I have Pyroblast. That now gives Hexing Squelcher haste, so it can bash in. And I don't know, maybe 3 lightning bolts go at my face and I'm dead. But if that doesn't happen, I presumably kill my opponent. I need more than what I have as of right now. Meltdown. Sure. I'll float a mana. That actually matters a lot. Like, I could now die to my own 1 ring pretty easily. Take 3 here. Go to 5. Broadside is cool. Do this. New 1 ring. Cast Chrome Mox. Imprint a broadside. Warp the 1 ring. Like so. Keep this one. This is going to go out at end of turn. I have protection from everything and can do this same thing next turn as well. Ancient Tomb now does not deal me damage. Cast Lotus Petal. I will now warp in Combustible Gearhulk and see if my opponent wants to take some damage or give me a bunch of cards. Trigger. Opponent lets me draw 3 cards. That's hilarious. Ancient Tomb, Lotus Petal, and again, these Ancient Tombs don't hurt me right now because of 1 ring protection. So now I just cast a broadside, uncounterable, go to combat. We win. We did it. It feels like my opponent just drew absolutely terrible cards or something, though. Like, they were passing the turn, doing nothing. Like, did they just end with, after Hexing Squelcher resolved, just mono counterspells in hand or something? I feel like we got very lucky to turn that into a win that was that overwhelming in that final turn cycle there. GG. Let's go ahead and wrap this one up. Overall thoughts on the deck list. I believe that I improved upon what I was sent, but I am still not happy with this. I don't think Tannuk is strong enough to build around in Legacy. And any interaction, you know, the Force of Will, Daze, Thoughtseize, Wasteland that took us off of our initial thing that made the hand keepable, be that a Soul Land, a Tannuk, a Sneak Attack, a 1 ring, really, like, just halted everything that I was capable of doing. In a Commander game, when your Tannuk gets answered, it goes back to the command zone, and a turn or 2 later, you can replay it. This is just something you're going to have consistent access to, or the games will be slow enough that you can start hardcasting your bombs, and you're playing plenty of mana rocks there to help hardcast them as well. And in Legacy, when your Tannuk gets taken, this stuff just gets stranded in your hand. I am very happy that we had a couple of games where we did the thing. I don't know how I would further improve this. I liked that I was largely playing these hardcastable, relatively hardcastable creatures. And, like, maybe you stop trying to be cute with Skitterbeam Battalion and you just play 4 Furies in the main deck in those slots, and then that gives you room in the sideboard for some Leyline of the Voids or something. I don't like that Skitterbeam Battalion is not red and Combustible Gearhulk does not go under Chrome Mox. There was some real tension there. I would say that the broadsides ended up doing much better than I expected. I was not impressed with them in Goldfishing. And in actual play, I'm not going to say that they were insane or anything, but they did bail me out of some tough spots. They did let me get rid of my own ring. They did take, like, some Thanazirs and stuff out of play. They were fine. So I think if you're going to try this out at your LGS, I'd remove Skitterbeam Battalions, put in some number of, like, Furies or maybe Pyrogoyphs into the main deck, just reduce the curve, make some of these things slightly more castable. I'm not sure where I fall on Sandstone Needle. It got just absolutely bullied by Wasteland in this league. And not being able to like use it to cast a Squelcher, then put Tannuk in play, and then sneak a thing in was relevant. I think I'm glad that I dropped one. You definitely need the Ancient Tombs. The red pips matter, so I'm not sure that City of Traders is just an upgrade to Sandstone Needle when you want to like play Sneak Attack and activate it potentially multiple times in a turn cycle. So I think we made some good progress today towards making something like this playable. Feel free to experiment further if you want. You could potentially try Trinispheres, Defense Grids, Chalice of the Voids, but I'm not sure that playing Tannuk is better than playing, say, Through the Breach. Like, as soon as Tannuk is out of the deck, you don't need to play the cute creatures anymore that work with Tannuk's restrictions. You just get to play Emrakul and Atraxa and Archon and maybe Galta, Worldspine Worm, Blightsteel if you want to get a little cheeky. And it is probably easier to steal wins. But, you know, you are playing Through the Breach, a 5-mana card in a world where Daze is very popular, so like maybe the Hexing Squelcher matters a lot. For those of you that want to explore this further, I think that is some good stuff to let you all chew on. So DK Forever 24. I don't know whether or not the idea of leaning into Sneak Attack was better than leaning into just generically good cards and trying to reuse Pyrogoyf and Fury and One Ring triggers. The actual answer is we probably shouldn't be doing either one of these things. But this was a fun way to spend a couple of hours, and I don't regret giving it some thought. All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and call it a day and get to all of my editing. I hope you enjoy, and if you have any cool ideas for the channel, please consider doing a donation deck list to support my content. All right, have a great day, folks. See ya!